guys, I thought I would come on here and do a little story time today about my recent diagnosis and treatment of inappropriate sinus tachycardia and probable SVT episodes, specifically atrial tachycardia. So I will take you guys back 2 years ago, actually 2.5 years ago when this all started. Forgive me if it's a bit disjointed, but I'll do the best I can at explaining this journey that I've been on. I'll take you back to when I gave birth to my second son, Archer. He is now 2.5. It was a very normal labour. I was planning on giving birth naturally, having a water birth, just like I did for my first baby. It wasn't a water birth, but was a full natural birth. But I got to 7 centimeters and I just wasn't progressing from there. And that lasted about 10 plus hours. I was around 7 centimeters. It turns out that he was actually the wrong way. So he was posterior. It was around 4 in the morning. I was extremely exhausted. I had no energy left to keep, going through labor as I was. So the decision was made that it would be safest to do an emergency C-section. So did the C-section, that was fine, came out. Obviously I was very drugged up with morphine and things like that. So that first day was a bit hazy. The second day and third day was really rough in terms of my recovery. So I stayed in hospital a little bit longer than the average person. In around 2 days after my C-section, I got up to have a shower for the first time. As I was in the shower, I had my first episode, which is what I call when I get the sudden, very fast, high heart rate. I was in the shower, I felt extremely dizzy and off, and I felt my heart start racing. Of course, this scared me a lot. This was my first ever episode. I didn't know what was going on, so I quickly got out of the shower, got back into bed, and lay down. We called the nurses in because my heart rate wasn't settling, and she then called the doctor, who then thought I had sepsis or postpartum infection post the C-section. I have actually had sepsis before with my first son, but my symptoms were a lot different. I had a lot of stomach pain then, I had fevers, and this time I literally just had the high heart rate. So of course, being in the hospital, they gave me antibiotics and eventually discharged me. That whole first week I was having high blood pressures and they didn't know why, but that eventually settled down. And after that I felt fine, I felt great. And I went home to be with my 16-month-old baby and my newborn baby. And yeah, those first 3 months were great. I should say first 8 weeks were great. Then when my son was around 7 or 8 weeks old, we flew to the UK to visit my husband's family. They all live over in London and Ireland. So we get to London. It was a very, very rough trip. My older son didn't sleep. We were literally awake for 48 hours. We were very jet lagged. And then that whole first week, we didn't really sleep much. Then I felt okay, just very tired and fatigued. A couple weeks later, we were in Ireland staying with my husband's grandparents, and that's when I had another one of those episodes. It was the middle of the night. I was awake breastfeeding Archer, my son, my baby, and I just felt my heart start racing again. I felt very hot and unwell, and then it settled back down. Again, didn't think too much of it that time, and that happened a few more times while we were overseas, but otherwise I felt fairly okay. We did the 33-hour trip all the way back to New Zealand, and then a couple of days later after we got back home, I went to the gym. I was just walking on the treadmill, just a very slow walk, just trying to warm up, and then again felt my heart rate go into this very, very fast rhythm almost instantly, and I felt extremely dizzy and basically like I was dying. Again, that probably lasted a few minutes and settled down, but it really rattled me. It really frightened me this time. And I drove straight home and I basically lay in bed for the whole rest of the afternoon. So these episodes continued happening more frequently over the next week or two until it got to the point where my heart rate wouldn't come down below 130 beats a minute for hours and hours on end. I couldn't even walk up to the shops, which is probably about 50 meters from our house. I was very fatigued all the time. I was having a lot of diarrhea, especially associated when with my high heart rate. When I would have these episodes, I would get diarrhea. I'd feel very faint and just terrible. Like, I can't even explain how awful I felt, and it was very scary. So I went in the ambulance a few times to ED, or the emergency department, and was diagnosed with anxiety. Of course I was, because that's what all young women with heart palpitations are diagnosed with when they first present to ED. My ECG was normal, aka it was sinus tachycardia, which is a normal rhythm. It was just going fast. So that happened a few times, and then the last time I went into hospital, I was there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and they did every test under the sun. They found out my iron was low, so they gave me an iron infusion, which that itself caused me a whole heap of problems, which I'm still dealing with to this day. Namely, hypophosphatemia, which is low phosphate levels in the blood. That happened within about 24 hours of having the iron infusion. My levels went down to 0.2. The normal levels here in New Zealand are 0.8 and above, or 0.75 and above. Anything under 0.3 is life-threatening and can put you in a coma. My levels were 0.2. My heart rate was around 160 for about 10 hours straight. That was lying in my hospital bed. So of course they gave me phosphate. They thought I had an infection again because my inflammation markers were through the roof. And so they gave me more antibiotics. Throughout the week, I slowly started to feel better and I was discharged. So this was February 2023. So we are now March 2025, keep in mind. So that was almost exactly 2 years ago, plus or minus a few weeks. Went home and I just felt a bit better, but still never really felt right. So yeah, they discharged me. I went home, felt very fatigued, and these episodes kept coming and coming. Sometimes one a month, sometimes one a week. It just depended. I also had chronic low phosphate levels, which I ended up going to ED a few times for, and they would give me more phosphate. And then I just started taking phosphate regularly because my body just was not holding on to it for some reason. And that continued the entire length of 2023 until about November, when I started doing high intensity interval training and all my symptoms disappeared, which was amazing. And for about 6 months, I had no symptoms. Fast forward around July 2024, so about 6-7 months ago now, my symptoms reappeared. I started having high heart rate episodes at work where my heart would go up to 130 to 160 while I was just sitting down at my desk. I wasn't doing anything to provoke episodes coming on. They would just, like before, just instantly come on and start going super fast. I'd feel very hot and faint, and that sense of impending doom, which was really awful. So July, they started happening again, very infrequently. So maybe once a month to start with, and then they kept getting more and more frequent until around September. I was very constipated in September. I don't know why, but being a nurse, I thought, I'll just go get an enema from the pharmacy. Do not do that without a doctor telling you to. Trust me. Anyway, so I did an enema and it didn't work. So I did another enema and it worked. And it worked a little bit too well. And as someone with chronic electrolyte abnormalities, that is a really bad idea. Anyway, so I did the enema, immediately felt unwell, felt nauseous all night. The next day I took the kids out for a fluffy or a baby chino, whatever you call it. And I had a coffee. Again, terrible idea when you're already having chronic diarrhea, or acute diarrhea, I should say, from the enema. So I felt extremely nauseous throughout the day. I felt worse and worse. until I picked my husband up and we went to the mall with the kids. And when I was in the car park, driving through the car park, I actually passed out at the wheel. Of course, my husband panicked. He called the ambulance. They took me into ED and I ended up staying there for a week. I was in the cardiology ward, and from then my heart rate would not go below around 100 or 120 beats a minute the entire week. Like the entire week I was there, my heart rate would not go below 100. When I say it's exhausting, having your heart rate go that high for that long is an understatement. It literally feels like you're running a marathon every minute of every day. It's extremely exhausting, and it got to the point where I actually couldn't walk anymore. I couldn't even walk a few steps to the bathroom, and if I did, my heart rate would shoot up to like 160, 180, and I would just feel awful. So I ended up in the cardiology ward, of course, because they didn't know what else to do with me. And I had a heart monitor implanted into my left breast, right above my heart, to record constantly, basically, any episodes that would come up. So I've got an app on my phone it connects to. It's like a Bluetooth thing. I push the button when I'm having an episode and it records 7 minutes of the episode. So about 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes each side of the episode. So we can actually see what my heart is doing leading up to the episode and then afterwards. So I had that put in, I went home, and since then I had really struggled with my heart palpitations, fatigue. No matter how much or how little I slept, I would be exhausted all day, every single day, from the second I opened my eyes until I went to sleep. That continued for months. I had another couple hospital admissions, because of my high heart rates, but each time they told me it's sinus tachycardia. They don't know what's causing it. Could be my electrolytes, could be just there's something not right with my heart. Keep in mind, I've already had heart scans and things which were all normal. So that rules out any heart disease, if you will. Fast forward to Christmas. So a few months ago, that's when things started getting really bad. I had the fatigue got a lot worse. I was getting episodes 3, 4, 5 times a week, sometimes every single day. And my quality of life just plummeted. I was really struggling with my mental health. I won't go too deep into it right now because I don't want to trigger anyone, but I was having some really horrible thoughts. I thought I was never going to get better. I thought, I was going to have a heart attack. My heart was just going to stop because my heart rate was high all the time. My resting heart rate was around 100 to 110, even just lying down in bed. Thankfully, while I was asleep, my heart rate would go back to normal, which is quite common for this condition that I've been diagnosed with. So after 2 months of high heart rates every single day, I went and saw the cardiologist. He did a few more tests to rule things out like pheochromocytoma or carcinoid syndrome. If you don't know what that is, look it up. And he finally diagnosed me with inappropriate sinus tachycardia and probable SVT episodes, because I have caught a few of them now and they do look like they are an SVT episode. So when my heart rate shoots up while I'm sitting at my desk, that is SVT episode. So what we think is probably from the moment I gave birth to my son, that's triggered something in my body and in my heart to not work quite as well as it should. So the relief actually getting a diagnosis was amazing, because after 2.5 years of being told there's nothing wrong with you, and then having someone acknowledge that there is something wrong with you, is like a weight being lifted off your chest. So fast forward to now, we're in March, and I have been on Ivabradine for a week. That was prescribed by my cardiologist. Apparently a lot of people with POTS or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome and inappropriate sinus tachycardia or IST, a lot of people use this medication and have really good outcomes with it. I would say like 90 to 95% of people do really well on it, and it improves their quality of life. So as you can see, I've been standing here for a long time talking to you guys, and I'm not shaking, I'm not feeling dizzy. And let's actually see what my heart rate is now, because usually it'll be around 120 just standing here, or even higher than that. So right now my heart rate is 94. It has brought my resting heart rate from 100 to 110 down to around 75 to 80. I'm on the lowest dose morning and night, and that seems to be working really, really well for me. So if you guys are in the same boat and you're struggling with similar symptoms, I'd urge you to not give up, not lose hope, keep fighting, keep, advocating for yourself, and just don't stop until you find a doctor who listens to you. I would highly recommend finding an amazing cardiologist and explaining your symptoms, maybe getting a Holter monitor to catch these episodes. And yeah, just not giving up, knowing that there is light at the end of the tunnel for you. For me, Ivabradine, as I've only been on it for a week. Obviously, that's not a long time, but so far this whole week has been incredible. I've got so much more energy. I'm not fatigued all the time, and my heart's actually getting a break during the day, which is amazing. So I thought I would just come on here and make a video about my experience with this. I know my experience is quite unique. A lot of people don't develop this after pregnancy. I think a lot of people do develop it during pregnancy, which wasn't the case for me. But I would love to just hear your guys' experiences in the comments. And if you're going through something similar, reach out to me. I'd love to have a chat with you. And yeah, I hope this helps someone. I'm really hoping this is the light at the end of the tunnel for me, and the end of a very long, hard journey with my health. I'm not expecting this to be a miracle drug, but if it can get my life back at least 90% of the way, or 80% of the way to what it was, it gives me my energy back and lets me, go for walks with the kids and go to the gym again and do things like that, I'll be so, so happy. So that is my story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll speak to you guys soon.